Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now September 12th of 2023, and given that we have a lot of things to discuss between Disney, the board of directors, Bob Iger, etc., and what's been going on lately for Snow White 2024, we all know that Disney really got very much, frightened about releasing the official trailer, and that's why they delayed it until around the holiday season, so we're not going to be seeing this thing until give or take around November to December, right around that time frame, because they are working on this trailer. They're really trying to work on the promotion work for Snow White properly, and it just goes to show you how much of a atrocity this movie really is going to be. That's really what's so revealing about them delaying the trailer. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. And let's get right into the subject. Now, we know that Bob Iger and the board are scrambling to save Snow White. We already know that there have been conversations between himself and the board on a plan to cancel this movie, and that is highly dependent only on what the overall feedback is going to look like for the official trailer and how severe it would be in comparison to that of The Little Mermaid. We already discussed more about those factors, but focusing on the opening sequence of Snow White. Now, we know that basically Disney is giving Snow White a completely different take. They're creating a modern spin on this with a sprinkle of Snow White and the Huntsman on top from what it sounds like, and it just feels like it alienates, completely just diminishes the 1937 original Disney tale. Now, moving onwards, with Snow White 2024 going through much damage control by Disney, one major development has to do with the opening scene for Snow White. One large sequence that is still attached to the final cut by director Mark Webb of the film involves a sequence in which Snow White is training with a new character dubbed the Protector. This character is said to be wearing some kind of medieval-like mask, training Snow White where they are both fighting with sticks that emulate battles with swords. Now, this sequence is said to be part of the opening scene that takes place after a shot is established of Snow White leaving her castle home and her father for a while to train. The Protector character belongs to Snow White and is considered to be a dear friend, and begins to tell Snow White a tale or a myth or two about the 7 magical creatures and their powers that lie beyond the Forbidden Forest. This is where the Protector informs Snow White that many of the magical creatures hold the ability to control the weather and life, such as the growth of fruits and vegetables and much more. There is even a series of dialogue passed between Snow White and the Protector, where he informs her about scary tales related to how the magical creatures were banished beyond the Forbidden Forest by the evil queen and her huntsman. So guys, let me just pause here. The fact that we have a mixture, from what it sounds like to me, of Snow White and the Huntsman, and from what it sounds like Robin Hood, it really just seems like Disney doesn't know what they're doing with this tale. Now, the fact that we have people out there like Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot really saying that this movie is going to be its own thing. It's going to be its own twist on Snow White. It's going to have some familiar aspects, which is not enough. You're going to have an apple, you're going to have a castle, you're going to have costumes that I guess are similar to that of the Evil Queen and Snow White, but that's really about it. There's no 7 dwarfs, there's no Prince Florian, you have a Jonathan, and let's not forget about the fact that this overall structure of the film is vastly different than the original 37 film. However, the thing that I don't like about this is that traditionally Snow White is not a fighter. She's not, someone that has the ability to fight with a sword or something like that. Now, sure, the reimagining for Snow White and the Huntsman, that was its own thing. But we gotta remember that this is Disney, guys. This is Disney. The people who created Snow White back in 1937, purposely dismantling their own source material to do something so distant from the original. I mean, just look at what they did with the 7 dwarfs, who are now magical creatures that hold the power to control the weather and to grow fruits and vegetables, which is very strange and taken directly from that Happily Ever After movie from 1989, where the female variants of the dwarfs actually hold powers like that. But moving on, this is where matters get even worse, and that makes the opening sequence even all the more unwatchable. Let's continue. Now, the training continues between Snow White and the Protector, where now she gains the upper hand and knocks down the Protector effortlessly on the ground, calling her win and defense a victory after a little to no training. Additionally, it eventually transitions to a shot of Rachel Zegler, now in her bedroom, singing to the moon as Snow White about obtaining power and rising to become a leader. Some of the lyrics even focus on an anti-love attitude in the song that was performed by Zegler. This is where the sequence closes and begins to focus on the introduction of the 7 magical creatures, telling ghost-like stories around the campfire about the evil queen and her evil brother, as they later begin to dance around the fire playing instruments. However, they are only seen as silhouettes in this moment and only teased. Now, I don't know about you guys, but there's something about the 7 magical creatures that comes across as very cheesy, almost like watching the Leprechaun movies. You guys ever see those Leprechaun movies by Warwick Davis? That overall attitude about how the character is done, I can imagine that that's how the characters are going to act as the 7 magical creatures holding these types of powers. That's how I kind of envision them. Now, speaking of Warwick Davis, that's who they should have got to play one of the dwarfs. They should have given, people with dwarfism jobs in a major movie like Snow White. That's what should have been done, to be honest. And they really could have done something truly spectacular that could have not only sent a great message to those people out there that they can get jobs, but it would have acknowledged and stayed true to the source material if it were not for Peter Dinklage really creating the final push. I mean, Disney made up their minds anyway, by the way, guys, we talked about this. It wasn't just Peter that really just made Disney decide to do this. They were already decided on changing the dwarfs to magical creatures, but Peter's comments really threw Disney off, and they said, alright, I guess, our thoughts really have some truth behind that we should change these characters drastically, and they did. So, overall, this opening sequence sounds unwatchable, it sounds terrible, and it just goes to show you that it doesn't know what it wants to be. It's like a combination, like I said before, of the Huntsman, Robin Hood, little sprinkles of Snow White, and I can't put a finger on what this movie is even about, and who they're trying to cater to. Certainly not a younger audience, from what it sounds like. It really sounds like this is catered to... you know what? I'm lost. I don't even know what kind of audience they're gearing towards this for. That's why this movie's gonna fail, and that's why I feel that it would be best to backgirl this thing. If you backgirl this movie, you save your image, you save your reputation at least a little bit, with what little reputation Disney even has left, and it's only gonna make matters worse if they do bring this out in theaters. So, anyway, guys, drop a comment below, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
Gun in hand, we are alone again. From night to moon, we hear them moans again.